Hi humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the second channel. This is where we read your personal scary stories. You guys all know the drill by now. If you have a scary story that you would like to submit, please look at the instructions down in the description down below and send it to the email. If you could include a TLDR in your story, it's definitely not required. It would just be helpful. It doesn't disqualify any of the stories that have already been sent to me or anything like that. It's just helpful in terms of me structuring the video. So without any further ado, I have nothing else to say. Let's get right into it. This first story starts, "Hi Hannah, you can call me Ash with they, them pronouns. Trigger warning for a shooting in this story." Okay, trigger warnings for shootings, just FYI. "On May the 4th, be with you, I went to a large music store with a few of my college friends. We'll call them J, B, and A. Around noon, we decided to lunch at a nearby Chick-fil-A, which happened to be near a mall. While we were there, a ton of cars were filling out. I thought there was an event or something that had ended, but because of all the cars, Jay, the driver, got mixed up and ended up in the mall's back parking lot. A small family came up to us, and the mom, whose face was bright red, told us that there was a shooting inside and that we need to leave. As we were driving off, we saw a large family walking inside, so we pulled up next to them and told them that there was a shooter inside. Unfortunately, they didn't speak English, and I was too stunned to try to speak Spanish, so they ended up going inside anyway. Oh my God, I hope they're okay. We then made our way to the Chick-fil-A, which was right next to said mall and absolutely packed since they had closed the dining room. Should we have gone to a different place? Probably, but we're a bunch of dumb 20-year-olds. When we drove out, we ended up getting stuck in traffic for about 20 minutes since everyone was evacuating. While all of this was happening, we're watching police cars driving all over the place trying to catch the guy. I didn't know this then, but one of the two culprits is still at large. Jay said that if he says duck, we all have to put our heads down, especially B, who was blind. Oh my gosh. A and I realized that as education students, this is unfortunately a reality that we might face." Isn't that so sad? I mean, if you want to be a teacher in America, it's a great job. It's something that you'll probably really enjoy if you're passionate about it. But you know, the big downside is that you'll get probably a shitty salary. It's a thankless job. Oh yeah, and you have to kind of be worried about dying and active shooters being a possibility. Like, what the America, man? That's just, ugh. Okay. We made it out safe and sound with only a bit of trauma. As for the people inside the mall, there was only 2 non-lethal leg injuries. Oh, okay, good. So that family that went in the mall was okay then. Oh my gosh. On May 12th, my fiance H and I took his mom, my mother-in-law, out to Chick-fil-A for Mother's Day. We passed a mall that had a circus tent by it, and so we were talking about it. A few hours later, my mom sent me a text message making sure I wasn't in that mall, as we usually go there when out in that particular city. She then sent me a link to a news article saying that there was a shooting at that mall too. I don't remember exactly what happened there, as I wasn't as obsessed with that case as I was with the first one, but I don't remember hearing that anyone died or was even injured. Oh, thank God. Jeez. Lastly, today, which was May 22nd, mother-in-law took me and H out for his 21st birthday. We wanted to get him a futon for his room, so she took us to around 6 different furniture places, all in a town known to be super sketchy. She started driving us around an abandoned mall that apparently had an open box furniture store in the back. I was already on edge thinking about what happened earlier this month. As I was getting out of the car, I noticed that the sliding doors in the front were stuck halfway open and couldn't move. We squeezed inside and everything in me was telling me to stop, but I didn't want H and my mother-in-law to be alone in there, so I went anyway. H remarked that this is the sketchiest mall I've ever been to, which made me more nervous. Mother-in-law just laughed it off and let us in. We were greeted by a guy who had his hand wrapped in his shirt. My stomach went tense and I was all ready to sprint. It was just us and him completely alone in a large room with almost no shelves to duck behind. He pulled his hand out of his shirt to wave and it was empty, but there could have been something hidden under the shirt. That would have been my first thought too, is why do you have your hand under your shirt? Yeah, again, especially in America, other countries probably don't, their mind probably doesn't go to that at first, but my mind definitely would have gone to What? Please let me see your hands. Mother-in-law went straight up to him and asked if he had any futons. He wasn't wearing any sort of uniform and was on his phone, but she didn't care. He didn't seem to understand her and led her towards where H and I were standing. I walked away towards where the beds were, still in fight or flight mode. H must have also been in fight or flight since I heard my mother-in-law giggle and say H is so scared. I was super anxious and kind of pissed, so I started to loop back around to leave. At this point, my mother-in-law and H were right behind me, and if either of them had even brushed me, I would have decked them. Mother-in-law kept poking fun at us for being anxious, but I stayed silent and led behind some of the shelves, keeping an eye on the guy who was now sitting behind a desk. He kept looking at us too. Mother-in-law kept making jokes as we got into the car, asking why we were scared. I said, I think this was sarcastic. It's not like I've been in 2 shootings in the past month. And her response was, oh, I didn't know that. Sorry, in a joking tone. She's a little older and very conservative, so maybe she doesn't understand the fear and trauma that comes with these things, but I would at least expect her not to joke about her son and daughter-in-law's safety. At least I got free pizza from the excursion. Thank you for all your videos. I love listening to them as I do chores or play games. I hope you have a great summer, Ash. Thank you, Ash. That's terrifying, and that is really insensitive of your mother-in-law. Like, I know it's not egregious or anything. I just mean that in the sense that to her, like, I don't think her intentions behind it were malicious, if that makes sense. Like, I'm sure she was just being, like, honestly didn't understand. But, like, ma'am, like, read the room. Like, I'm glad that we're all okay, but, like, clearly this is, like, legitimately traumatizing for me. And, like, yeah, excuse me for being scared in this same area. And her, like, kind of making fun of you is just, like, I guess just unnecessary. And the reason it's unnecessary, I feel like most of us would understand that it's very invalidating. It makes it feel like you're being silly for being scared of something, which is, like, literally everyone's worst nightmare. Like, that just seems really unnecessary. So anyway, thank you so much for your story. I would stay away from those malls. Jeez. Okay, the next story goes, hello, Hannah. I have a near-death experience story that happened to me back in 2018 to 2019. I'm not sure if you'd consider this scary, but it for sure was for me and my family. It also involves my pet rats, which I know you have as well. Yours are adorable, by the way. Thank you. Low-key might have been one of the reasons I picked this story because I love talking about rats. I had a pair of rats quite a few years ago, Otis and Cookie. I got them off of, I don't know what that is, Kijiji? After many failed attempts at getting rats again. Maybe I should have seen that as a sign. They were honestly the sweetest rats I've ever had. One day I was cleaning their cage and my boy Otis was mad for some reason. I had put my hand near him and he bit into it hard. It took me a few seconds to get him off of me, but by the time I did, my hands were badly bitten and bloody. I was freaked out because he did that, not necessarily because of the pain or the blood, but it was just so out of his character. This is verbatim what happened to me a few weeks back. Oh my gosh. After I cleaned it up, my mom was asking me about anything I could possibly catch from the bite, and I said no, probably not, even though there was something called rat bite fever, but it's extremely rare. Facts. This happened a day before my birthday on December 23rd. By the time Christmas came, I was feeling off. I had a headache and felt overall bad, but I tried to brush it off. My mom started worrying at this time, but I told her that I was fine. For the next few days, it seemed to just get worse. I couldn't eat or get out of bed, and I felt utterly horrible. I had contacted a family friend who's a doctor, and he said that it was probably just a coincidence since rat bite fever is so rare, and I think that it made my family and I feel a little better at least. I tried to sleep off the sickness, but it didn't let up, and I had a fever, and it was just getting worse. My arm was also swollen, which was concerning, especially if it was the arm that you got bit. It's now New Year's Eve, and I'm still trying to sleep because I have no energy to get up or do anything for that matter. Later that night, my mom came in the room and turned on the lights to give me Advil or something, but when she did, she saw my hands and freaked out. I had red spots all over my hands, a telltale sign of rat bite fever. Immediately, she got me up and called my grandpa to drive us to the hospital. My dad had taken the car to go to a family member's house for the holiday. We get there, and the doctors were stumped, even though I knew exactly what was wrong. By the time I got to the hospital, I was in sepsis. The rat bite fever had caused a blood infection, which would have been deadly if not treated. Yeah, like the red spots all over. Isn't that kind of a sign of a possible blood infection if you have giant red blotchy patches all over? I thought that was a sign, but Medical people correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be. It took them a while, but I was finally put on the meds that would get rid of the virus. I was in the hospital for a week or so and on an IV for another week, along with another week and a bit of meds. The doctors said that they never seen that virus in a person before, so it was a new case to them, and they were all so surprised by the fact that I had rats too. LOL. I thought that that was the end for me, and so did my parents. I wouldn't have made it if my mom hadn't seen those spots on my hands that night. I believe the survival rate without medication is something like 18%. I could be mistaken though. Yeah, no, I believe it is actually, it's not that risky, like to have rats. It's not that risky because it's so rare and treatable if you catch it, but I believe it can be very scary if you don't get it treated. I guess I was just extremely unlucky in the first place catching the rare virus. I ended up keeping the rat that caused it. I couldn't get rid of my baby. Some people may call me crazy, and I do miss those rats dearly, even though they almost cost me my life. Now, I don't want this story to scare people. You can get sepsis from any animal bite, really. Rats are sweet creatures and great pets. Thank you for reading. Sorry if this was long or not scary. It was scary. It was scary. But I thought I'd share my story because I think it can be relatable about the rats, Sophia. And I included a picture of the rats in question. Thank you, Rat Tax. So here's the picture of the rats. Thank you very much for sharing. This hits really close to home for me. So a lot of you guys don't know, because I think I only shared with my patrons, but I've been going through a lot of rat struggles ever since I got them over the past few months. But I did end up getting a third rat from one of my breeders to give one of the other ones a buddy. And this third rat was very sweet. I had only had him for like a week or two. He wasn't aggressive to the other rat. He was pretty intimidating to the other rat though, but one of the rats that was separate, that was not socializing with them because he was aggressive and was in the middle of calming down from his neuter and everything. He had seen that rat through the bars and he was getting really puffed up and upset. And I made the mistake, this was completely my fault, I made the mistake of opening the cage. I was going to put the third rat in a separate cage so that everybody was all separate and everybody was safe. But the third rat, I believe, thought that I was the rat he was mad at because I think my hand smelled like it. And rats, if you don't know, they can't see for shit. They're almost blind. And so he probably thought I was that rat coming to invade his territory. And he bit down on this thumb specifically. Some of you might have seen the bandage in my videos a few weeks ago, and maybe I did talk about this on the main channel, I can't remember, but he bit down on my finger so hard, and it was exactly like yours. It took a second to get him off. I couldn't just pull my hand away, even though that's your instinct. You have to like grab his head. I didn't hurt him, don't worry. I just like gently pulled his head off of me, but it was just like complete panic, blood everywhere. Everywhere. He got me so deep. I'm pretty sure he got my tendons. And when I see, I can look at crime scene photos all day, but when it comes to my own blood, no, I can't handle it. And I almost passed out. I had my mom on the phone because I live alone. And if I did pass out, I needed somebody to know. And I finally got it all under control. I did not get rat bite fever, but I did end up deciding to go to urgent care a few days later because it was so deep, because I couldn't get like triple antibiotic really deep in the wound or anything, because it was such a deep puncture. I did go to urgent care, and I'm really glad I did because they gave me a tetanus booster, which I always get I get all my shots, but I hadn't had one since 2018. So it had been more than 5 years. And if it's been over 5 years, they just give you an extra one anyway, because it won't hurt to get a booster. So I got a tetanus booster, and they put me on antibiotics just in case, because they were really, because you don't really want to mess around with animal bites. And it ended up healing, and I was totally fine. And I am very aware of rat bite fever, and I know that it sounds really scary and that it can be very scary, but I do, just like you said, I don't want it to dissuade people from liking rats or getting rats, because in all honesty, more people have been bitten and hurt by a dog or your cat scratching you. Your cat digs around its poop in the litter box, and then if they scratch you, they get all that bacteria under your skin. Like, it's not like rats are more dangerous than a cat or a dog. And your cat and dog, especially your dog, goes outside and is touching all the shit outside. Rats stay in a room inside and they're very quarantined from the rest of the world. So they're actually cleaner than your dog. So I agree with you. Like, you can get something scary from any animal bite. So I hope that doesn't dissuade people from rats. But yes, it's just funny because I had a very similar thing happen to me where it was scary, but thankfully I did not get rat bite fever. It's crazy that you got rat bite fever from that. And good for you for keeping that rat, because my rat was so new and it was like I was just kind of like borrowing him from my breeder so that I had a friend for one of my other rats. I did end up returning him to the breeder because we never bonded. Like, we never had a chance to bond. And then he had like lightly bitten me before. Like, he didn't seem to like me that much, if that makes sense. Like, he did not like me that much. And I was really scared of him then. And so I did end up giving him back to the breeder. But just so that everybody knows, it's not like I was doing that negligently. The breeder just took him back. He just went right back in the cage with all of his big group of rats with the breeder, who takes really excellent care of them. So he was totally fine and probably happier in the end that way anyway. He went on to go live his best life. He's had no issue since. It was my mistake for sticking my hand in an aggressive rat's face who was puffed up and thought that I was another rat. That was 1000% my fault. So all that to say, Sophia, thank you so much. It is a really good reminder and lesson for people that if you get bit, or just if you have a fever and scary symptoms and they're not getting better or they don't seem to be subsiding, it never hurts to just go to the doctor and get something checked out. This just happened to my dad. Like, he just found out that he has like a very mild case of pneumonia because he was sick for a long time and he wasn't going to the doctor. My mom finally pushed him to go to the doctor and they listened to his lungs, and sure enough, he had some bacterial pneumonia. And it's like, just, it never hurts to go get checked out, right? If you have the means, of course. Okay, moving on. This next story is pretty short, but let's do it. So, story 3. Hi, Hannah. I'm a huge fan of your videos, even if sometimes I put them on right before I nap. LOL. I do that too. It's okay. No offense taken. Please keep me anonymous for this story. Quick note for this story. My girlfriend uses she, her, and I use they, them. So this story was about 2 years ago. My parents were out of town and we were house sitting and dog sitting. My girlfriend was asleep in my childhood room and I woke up to get a glass of water. I walked downstairs and saw a large man. Keep in mind, I'm like 5'4" and all bones. Another thing to note is that in our community, my dad is known to let homeless people spend the night on our couch if they need it. So I calmly, to this day, I don't know how I stayed so calm, said, "Please leave. Dad's name isn't home right now." The man mumbled apologies and walked out. This man got into the house because I left the door unlocked. I immediately ran upstairs, woke my girlfriend up, woke the dog up, and texted a friend to ask if we could stay at his place for peace of mind. Moral of the story, my girlfriend thought I locked the door and I thought she did. So always check the door, even if you think your partner/roommate locked it. I don't think this guy meant any harm, but it genuinely spooked me. Okay, what I got out of this story is that your dad is so sweet for letting homeless people crash on his couch if they need it. Like, that's so nice of him. However, I also do not blame you whatsoever for being spooked by that. That would have really freaked me out. Especially if you weren't expecting them. If like he was like, hey, so-and-so is gonna sleep here, take a nap here for a while, then it wouldn't be as jarring. But yeah, they might have been taking advantage of his hospitality there a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. That's an assumption. Okay, this one says, "Hi Hannah, it's human. For the sake of the story, you can call me Fox and use they, them pronouns, but I am AFAB, and at the time of this story, I am now still very female presenting, and for all intents and purposes, looks like a woman/girl." All of these stories, I don't know if it's just what I picked today, but like a lot of these stories, I feel like I get so many non-binary people writing into me, and I just love that. I just love that I curated a community where LGBTQ plus, etc. people and allies feel comfortable enough to share their stories with me. Like, I just love that. I love that. Okay, also apologies, but there is quite a bit of preamble before we get into this story, but I feel like I needed to explain some things about what was going on and where this was happening. This happened back in May of 2022, a few months after I had swapped schools due to my old school not offering the subjects that I wanted and not being disability friendly. I'm both physically and psychosocially disabled. That was a hard word for me to say. But at the same time of the story, I was not obviously disabled. The school I had swapped to was primarily online, but twice a week was open in the city for students to come in and have meetings with their teachers and spend time with other students. For me, it was about a 45-minute to an hour commute, depending on traffic, and I would take the train home. While I was a high school student during this event, my school didn't require any uniform, and I was just dressed in casual clothing. For part of this story, you need to know how the trains here in Sydney work. They are split into 2 levels with seating in both levels, 3 seats on one side, 2 on the other, and a narrow aisle in between. And the seats have a handle on them that you can use to pivot the back and change which directions the seats are facing. Oh, that's cool. That lets you choose if you're facing forward or backwards, or have seats facing each other if you're in a group. That's cool. I've never seen that on the public transport here. We do sometimes have double-decker buses. I would be scared to ride on them, but they are pretty cool. They have like 2 levels, like the night bus in Harry Potter. But that's cool that you could swivel your chairs. I went to the upstairs section and sat down on the window seat of one of the 3 wide seats. I would usually go for the 2 wide ones so people wouldn't sit next to me. Valid, relatable, but they were all taken. Common courtesy is if you're in the 3 wide seats, you let people sit next to you with a space between you. Right. You'd sit in the aisle seat if you needed to sit next to somebody on a window seat. You wouldn't just sit in the middle seat right next to them if all 3 seats were open, is what you're saying. Unless the bus, of course, was completely full and people didn't have a choice. That makes sense. Just normal etiquette. So I was sitting on the window seat facing forward with my bag in the seat next to me, and I was doing some journaling activities on my laptop. There was a row of seats in front of me facing forward, and then a few facing backwards towards me, and a woman was sitting a few rows down ahead of me facing towards me. I am someone with a lot of social anxiety and who doesn't do well around people I don't know, especially older or physically larger men. I also have a lot of issues with personal space and I can't handle someone being too close to me due to my anxiety and autism. About 2 stops into the train ride, a man got on and came up to the upstairs section, and there was something about him that gave me red flags, but not in a way that I could pin down in the moment. Looking back, he was probably struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues and was possibly going through an episode of something. And he asked me if he could sit next to me in the free seat. Note, there were many free rows on the train since it was well before rush hour. What the hell? Because of my anxiety and the bad gut feeling I was having, I politely told him no. Good for you. Good for you. If someone makes you uncomfy, you don't owe them anything. He then proceeded to call me a bitch, because of course he did, and sit on one of the seats facing towards me. Thankfully not the one right in front of me, so there was a barrier between us. For the next 5 minutes, maybe less than that, it was several years ago, very stressful, and I already don't have a working internal clock, he sat staring directly at me, swearing at me, and saying things I couldn't understand. That was when I took the video I attached to this email, and I sent it to my mom along with a lot of panic texts about what was going on because I was really panicking, but managed to keep it together somewhat. Thankfully, at the next stop, he got off the train, and that was when I finally broke down crying and having a panic attack. Oh no. The woman who was behind the man and who saw it all going down comforted me and offered me to call someone if I couldn't in that moment. I believe she also offered to call the cops if I wanted her to, but I can't be sure if she did. But if she did, I turned down the offer due to all the stress that happened in the moment and because nothing happened other than verbal harassment. Yeah, I understand that. I'd be really scared to call the cops too if that had happened because it's like they already are unreliable based on the situation a lot of the time on like if they're going to even help or not. So in this case, I would just be more anxious about calling them because it's like, What if they just don't do anything? And what if they just call me stupid, you know? I ended up getting home safe, but incredibly shaken up, and was incredibly anxious for the next several times I took the trains into and out of the city to go to school. One of the worst things about what happened is that it happened the day before my birthday, and I was still very shaken up the next day due to everything that happened, so you couldn't even enjoy your birthday. Oh my gosh. Looking back at it, I doubt anything physically would have happened, even if he sat next to me, and he was likely someone who needed help for whatever issues he had going on, but that doesn't change the absolute terror I was experiencing in the moment. I'm thankful for the woman who helped me out afterwards, as well as during panic attacks. I can barely do anything or make any decisions most of the time. Here's a link to the video. I was unable to send it via email, so I ended up uploading it on YouTube. Feel free to show the video on your channel, but don't share the link. Got it. Thank you so much for reading this. If you do end up sharing it in a video, Fox. Thank you so much, Fox, for your story. I am going to have Taylor insert the video, and I'm going to have her blur out the face of the guy, just because if he was going through a mental health crisis, I don't want to also, like, I know that he was a dick, like he was extremely disrespectful and really scared somebody who he perceived as a woman especially. But on the other hand, it's like he didn't give permission to post this all over the internet, so I'm just going to have her blur his face. So here's the video that Fox sent. So the only thing I want to say about this story is that, I mean, other than thank you so much for sharing it, because I think it makes a lot of people that are femme presenting, in spite of your real gender identity, a lot of people in the world just assume you're a woman. I think it is really important for us to remember that not only is this validating for other women and femme presenting people, because when this happens to us all the time, like, let's be honest, I don't know one woman in my life where something like this hasn't happened or worse. It's really scary. It's really scary and really uncomfortable. And a lot of the times people don't care. I mean, other women who've been through it understand, but I'm really sorry. I know not all men are like this, blah, 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 blah. But even my really close guy friends, when I've described stuff like this happen, or even when I've been in relationships at the time and I've like told my boyfriend, their response is always weird. Like, their response is always like, oh, that sucks. Or like, oh, he was probably just mentally ill. Or like, he was probably just blah, 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 blah. And they act like I had no reason to be scared or upset about it. And that's really annoying to me. I would just love nothing more than all men in this world to just validate the fact that women don't feel safe in public spaces a lot of the time. And to you, especially with all your anxiety, but even if you don't have anxiety, it's so jarring that you have every right to say no to somebody sitting next to you when there's a billion other seats on the train. Like, if there was no seats, sure, like, I understand why that would be rude to not let him sit down. But when there's a bunch of other seats and he wants to sit next to you just to intimidate you and to talk to you when you clearly didn't want to talk, you had every right to say no. And then for him to call you a bitch, which is completely unhinged and inappropriate, and then to go on and rant and scare you, even if he was mentally ill, like, yes, I'm very sorry, I don't know what was going on in his life, but it doesn't give him the right to scare a femme presenting person or a woman just for the sake of doing it. Because to us, we're like, we don't know what you're gonna do. We don't know if because we said no, you're now going to physically attack us, if you're gonna stalk us now, if you're gonna wait for us to get off the train and follow us off. Like, we don't know, and it's scary to us because it happens to other women we know all the time. Like, please, again, if you don't understand what it's like to have this happen to you, that's fine. That's not your fault, and I wouldn't wish it on you. You know, I don't want this to happen to anybody, but please just believe your friends, whether it's a woman, a man, whatever, whomever, whatever gender they are. Just say, oh my God, that's terrifying. If they seem terrified, just validate that. That's all we ask. That's all we ask, is just for you to express that our feelings are valid and that it's okay that we were scared. Off my soapbox. Climbing off my soapbox, here I go. Okay, let's move on to the next story. This one starts, "Hi Hannah, I wish to stay anonymous, but I have a story for you. One of my best friends growing up lived in a historic part of the city in a house that would have been the servant quarters to some of the wealthy properties on the street. The house was small and had an odd layout, with the main floors consisting of a tiny living space and a kitchen that you would walk through to ascend the stairs to the bedrooms on the second floor. Her room had the Coraline door that led to the attic crawl space next to her room instead of the ceiling like most houses. Before the house was renovated, this crawl space also would have been a room for the servants to sleep, but it had since been repurposed as a storage space that eventually became derelict. Oh my gosh, hold on. Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop bop. Gotta look it up. Don't even know what that word means. This is so embarrassing.
Derelict.
Derelict, yes. Derelict, a noun, a person abandoned or neglected by society, a social outcast or vagrant, property deserted or abandoned by the owner, occupant, etc., a vessel abandoned at sea. Derelict, okay. Don't make fun of me. But it had since been repurposed as a storage space that eventually became derelict from lack of use. Upon moving into the house, her family looked inside one time and then never opened it again. As long as she's lived there, I remember she always had a weird feeling about this door. She had several nightmares about it and woke up one night to see a ghostly apparition pass through her bedroom door into the crawl space door, after which she put her massive dresser drawer in front of it so she wouldn't have to look at it anymore. Apparently the dresser barricade worked well enough because she didn't see or dream of anything strange afterwards, which I appreciated because I spent the night at her house regularly. I personally had experienced my own fair share of inexplicable paranormal BS by the age of 12 and was happy to have one less thing to ruin a good sleepover. The day she was moving out, my mom and I were helping them move, and we had packed the last boxes into our cars and took a couple minutes to say goodbye to the house. I asked my friend if we could open the crawl space door since she would never need to sleep there again, and she agreed. At the time, I had a phone that only used flash when the camera was on, so I started recording just so we could see into the dark space. There was a couple things left over from the previous owners that became permanent installations because it wasn't safe to walk into without the risk of falling through the floor. It was mostly insulation and beams, but I remember there being a sink and a chair in there. I took one step in to get a better angle because the light wasn't very bright and the crawl space was the length of a house, so it went pretty far back. I remember a sudden awful feeling of cold dread washed over me, and my hair stood up on end, a visceral reaction I get when something is really sketchy. But nothing had happened to elicit this response, so I just pulled out of the crawl space and we closed the tiny door for good. We left and went to her new house, and I was planning on spending the night. I had kind of forgotten about the recording on my phone, so later when I opened the photo gallery to show her something, I noticed there was not only a recording from earlier, but a picture that I didn't remember taking. It was the same angle of the crawl spaces in the video, but in the darkness there were 4 glowing blue lines coming from behind one of the beams, and I showed her. I couldn't tell what it is, but it looked almost like fingers, but I would have remembered seeing something like that. I opened the picture to edit it in Instagram and turned up the brightness to maximum, and I about screamed. Ooh, there's a picture. I'm so excited. We were pretty much freaking out about it. We're not going to show you the picture yet. We were pretty much freaking out about it for the next several years, and I still have this really weird freaky feeling when I see the picture. Even if it isn't a humanoid head with a wicked grin peeking around the corner, I have no idea what else it could have been. I have a theory that paranormal experiences present to people who are vulnerable and impressionable to fear or other strong negative emotions, and children are a great vessel for it because they don't try to fight it like adults do. So if someone's going to be haunted or possessed, it's going to happen to a kid. I have other similar stories from my childhood, but this is the only one with photographic evidence. Hopefully you can see it from the images. Oh, that's the end of that story. Okay, here's the photos. That's so creepy. It looks like a grinning clown face. So they're talking about the little blue lines look kind of like fingers. I could see that being a weird glare on the camera, or something, like instead of fingers. Like I could see that being like a weird reflection or something like that. But that is unquestionably a face. And you're positive there was no dolls up there or anything like that that were sitting in weird places that you might have caught, right? Oh my God. I'll also have Taylor put up the edited one that you did with like the lines and stuff like that. Oh my God, I don't like it. I don't like it. That's so scary. Funny enough, I think this was our only paranormal story of this video. I think all the others ended up being real life experiences. So that's a really great way to top the end of this video. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, video and photo evidence, of course, is never required because I understand it's very difficult to get in the moment when things are happening. But like, if you have it, like, that's great because that is so creepy. If this was a TikTok video, I would assume it was edited, but I really don't think it was because I think you would have shared it on social media for clout by now. And not only do you want to stay anonymous, but like, it's not like you're just sharing this willy-nilly with the internet. So, oh my gosh, it's so creepy. It looks like a baby. Ooh, okay. That just gave me chills. All right. I think that's a great place to end this video. So we're going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel because I'm trying to build this channel up as, you know, anybody's trying to build any of their channels up. But I feel like a lot of people still don't know about this second channel. So please tell your friends if they watch my main I don't know. Just yeah, like the video if anything else, because that is a nice, free, easy way to help the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.